Hi, this is the Free Art School, where the topic is what it's like to actually live as an artist, from practical matters to what's most meaningful and sustaining a human being living a creative life. My name is Mariah Robertson. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Sean Nash, artist based in Kansas City, Kansas.
Oh, hi. I'd like to welcome Sean Nash, artist and longtime friend of mine. We went to graduate school together. Sean currently has a show up at Kate Werble Gallery in Manhattan, New York City, that opened July 10th and is up through August 15th, 2025. I think we'll sprinkle in a little information about that as we go. Thank you for doing this free art school chat with me. All right, so we were chatting a little bit before recording, and it seems like a good place to start is that, well, I know you primarily as a painter, and you do have a painting show up right now, but I know that that has not been like a straight line over the last 20, 25 years. And so I'm curious what you had to say about um, the role of like experimenting with media and how that scary point of like trying new things and experimenting and like how that's fed your practice.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, first of all, for the invitation to Free Art School. I hope to give out some good free art tips, but we shall see. Yeah, and the show at Kate Werble is all paintings on canvas, which I hadn't done for 20 years since we graduated from art school at Yale. And it left me with that question, like since I started painting on canvas again. I was painting. I would consider what I was making paintings of various kinds and wall oriented things for a long time, especially in my sense of color and use of color. Um, but this impulse to paint on canvas again came from somewhere really deep, and it was a surprising or has been a kind of surprising journey, like both emotionally and sort of physically, to see what I can do after 20 years of not doing it, which did feel like a sense of experimentation, even though the format is quite traditional. For me, I had taken so many different routes into sculptural work in particular, and starting in grad school, thinking of painting in a material and sculptural and tactile sense led me to a lot of different things that I know we'll talk about. But painting again, like on canvas and thinking about imagery and thinking about mark making and the way I wanted to paint had this it has this quality of like a return of returning to something that feels very deeply ingrained in me. And I think it's a language that I realized, at least that I want to practice again. And maybe it was something that I was ignoring. And perhaps even if we get like sort of psychological about it, it's like something that I was afraid of doing, to be honest. I think that that could be part of it.
Oh, how come you were afraid?
Well, I mean, you remember grad school. I think that like painting got kind of I think when I entered grad school, my main thought was I want to be a really, really good painter. Like that was why I went to grad school. But I was interested in contemporary issues and contemporary conversations about media and what those things translated in terms of a contemporary political landscape or commentary and um, conceptual ramifications of how one would use material. So in grad school, I quickly kind of moved out of it. I mean, I remember this visit with Mel Bachner where it was like my first studio visit, and I had barely even started a painting, and he just kind of tore it down. Like he really like took down my process in this very discouraging way. And I think it was well intended, but it was not good for me. And like that, just the fact that that happened, I think like it discouraged me from painting. It let me explore all kinds of other things and ask the question that he was trying to ask, which definitely pushed me. But I that desire to like continue painting or to persist at something and be really diligent about it, that fell away in favor of finding new things. And so over this last like 20 years, I have become used to always trying to find new things to happen in the studio. Um, I think now like that the sort of deeper part of that or like what that might um be psychologically I don't know, or where that's lodged is like not something I have feel like I have to analyze, but it is something that makes me remember now that I need to stay true to whatever internal feeling is really magnetic, is really strong. Like why should I be doing one thing over another? I think that question is really important. Where to put my attention and how does that feel? Like, honestly, it's an embodied question. How does that feel in my body to be doing one thing over another thing? And I can use my studio practice to do all of those things, to not stop making sculptural work. But that I know now that what I want to do is keep kind of as many of those plates spinning as possible so that I'm investigating all of those different aspects of what I need out of an artistic practice.
Oh, can I ask a little bit about refining the ability to listen to the sense from the body? I'm picturing your gut as you say it, but I don't know that that's what you mean. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I do mean all the kind of like I mean with mindful awareness, like having an internal sense of knowing like what lights you up, what sits right, what makes you have awe. Like I think searching for awe in a practice, especially like when you're waiting for something exciting to happen in your own studio practice, which I think for most artists should be a primary goal. Like you go in to do things, you're not there. Some people are there to repeat the same thing every day, but eventually you want something new to spark you. And I think that that is awe. And I think you can have an awareness, an internal awareness of what gives you awe, what gives you joy, and what lights your body to make something. If it's, with your hands and in the way that, I work in my studio, and it has to do with movement. I think it's connected to a synesthetic like quality as well, where, it has also to do with music and other things that give the body life. And yeah,
can I ask you
that's
a
what
real basic thing? Because you said mindfulness. Do you meditate? Do you have a meditation practice? And then you said music. So I'm curious about any dance or exercise. Do you do physical, like subconscious mind body connection before you go into the studio?
I have a hmm, I have an occasional meditation practice. It's always like a goal, but I'm not upset with myself for not doing it every day.
Fair.
I do think that like mindful, I think that mindful awareness and I mean therapy, I just came from therapy before we did this. So, I think that like different ways, different tools you have to be in touch with yourself are really important. I mean, and I do
Mindfulness,
have,
being mindful is like an embodied meditation practice, like so you don't have to sit quietly.
no, I think that like I think that actually sitting does feel wonderful, and I think it's a really wonderful practice, and it is like um, there's so much science behind what it does for your brain. So on the one hand, yeah, I would like to increase that, but I do think that like drawing for me has become that like step inside of the some of the bigger moves that happen in the studio. So like I when I was thinking about painting again on canvas. Um, I had started restarted my drawing practice. And so drawing and moving in the drawing and just discovering kind of some immediate things that happen in drawing, like that became a way in. I was making other work that like wasn't immediate. I had to cast all these different parts and, you know, the work I was making just prior to these paintings in 2023 was like shaped paintings. So every single part of planning for the work, even though it was improvisational on the surface, there was not there was spontaneity at moments, but I had to really have so much planned out. I think that when I started drawing again, that opened up a more improvisational space. And I think those things are, yeah, that whatever does that for anyone in particular, like is something worth tuning into so that you can I mean, speaking of athleticism or like movement, I do yoga and I work out and I like to run. I really like to be active in my body. And I think that once I started thinking about my artistic practice as if I'm an athlete, what are the things that I need to do to support myself in all the physical ways that I need support so that I can come into the studio, not just to be efficient, but to actually like really make something of whatever skills I believe I have in this world. Like there's something precious about it that's like I have to be dedicated and I have to you know, get sleep. And these are just the things that I need. I need to have a routine. I need to get sleep. I need to like, whatever, be hydrated. So to think a little bit more like there's training involved for what I do, just that helps me. It might not help everyone. People have really different schedules and really different attitudes about how they like to um, be in their studio and have their practice, but that really works for me.
Oh yeah, I think that's really powerful because a lot of that applies to me too. And I think sometimes people have this idea that artists are like living wild and crazy lives of leisure and trucks or something. I don't know. I could,
No, well, it is a
I
myth.
think others are like, I mean, it's a slog and it requires a lot of dedication and taking care of yourself is what I find. And when I have a deadline, I remember when I did a half marathon, you like have to eat certain food and no alcohol, no sugar. So I revert to marathon diet when I'm on a deadline.
Yeah. And, when I say that, I also think about like competitiveness and how competitive the art world is, and that there's a natural parallel if we start talking about athleticism or sport, what that idea of competition is. But I think I've really, as much as I can, rewired a lot of the parts of myself that relate to our social world as artists and as peers in terms of competitors into something I hope that's like much more beneficial and shared for our artistic futures, which is like collaborative, which is community building. So even though I want to like be at my top shape to work in the studio, it's not about individualism. Like I really have been thinking so much about who we need to care for and how, and like that caring for your friends and your friends' success and really like participating in it actually means something. And those were some things I did not understand or appreciate when I was younger.
Oh, hey, did you want to talk about like the role of being like socially involved? Knowing that social engagement is part of uh, personal development and staying in a network and not just an after effect of being in the network.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of confusion for me when I was young about what it meant to be an artist. I think, plugging away at the studio and then sort of fighting for scraps like became kind of the norm. Um, but I did not understand that like the merits of your work alone and the like objective, I think if there's an objective quality to like what makes good art, and I think there are maybe some, but that's maybe a whole other conversation. But believing that if I just make really good work and if I just work really hard and make great work and I put a lot into it, that those are the things that will push me ahead. Like some door will open, some magical thing will happen, somebody will enter the studio. And the truth is, I think that like there's so many things to unpack around that idea, but I didn't understand how important it was to spend time on the social aspects of being an artist, not because they are not meaningful or just transactional, but because they can be quite meaningful, not only to other people or not only to you, but to other people that we are participating in our community. Like just the fact that you're making free art school is sort of a testament to this whole idea. It's not you're inviting other people on here. You're not just saying this is Mariah's free art school and I'm doing all the videos myself. It's really about like a shared and acknowledged sense of how people gain and form different kinds of knowledge within the art world, and just that there isn't one path, there isn't one way of knowing it. But you to be socially connected, I don't necessarily mean, the social media tools that are at our disposal, but I do think those are helpful these days, and they're more helpful than what we had in the past, which was quite opaque. I mean, my impression is that the art world or worlds of art, which mean I don't know, how you get shows, how people buy your work. Some of those things have become more transparent. Who gets shown, that's been much more under question. So some of the things that, yeah, frustrated me when I was younger because I didn't understand and wasn't schooled in, really talked about professional practice wasn't part of what I remember as part of my education.
I mean, like, I think sharing ideas with other artists is both like personally gratifying, but then also the whole point of communicating things that you can't communicate in another way. But then also getting them out to the world and beyond artists and publicly showing, like sharing. And you've got to invite people over so they even know what you're doing to then move to that public exhibition level. I mean, beyond like considering, like you were saying, social transaction, like networking or some sort of business networking. There's also like meaningful, just connecting with other people who care about what you care about. And also business is, also meaningful. And there are good people out there who want to curate or buy things or show things. There are good relationships in that aspect as well. If that's what you're interested in, which maybe you're not, and there's all kinds of ways to go, but other people need to know what you're doing. Young artists get told to just make the work and things will flow, or just make the work and then things will follow.
Yeah, I think that's partial advice. Like, I would say, like, it feels like partial advice because, on the one hand, yeah, you have to persist. Like, persistence in your own work, in your own studio, I mean, it won't happen if you stop. So that's true. But no, things don't just come to you. You really have to sometimes just ask for them. Like, if you know people, if there's a space, where you are like, I mean, I've asked galleries to have shows before and it works.
But you already had a relationship with them, not like a cold ask.
True. So therein is the point of like realizing what your energy is for going out, showing up, and meeting people, honestly, and not being afraid or embarrassed to ask for their email or even express interest. I think, like, why should we have fear about saying, like, hey, I really like your gallery? Like, and then what follows from there. But I have been afraid of that for a long time.
Because we're all
Um,
like people drawn to the arts are all sensitive, not most socially smooth people.
Yeah, and I was gonna say like a segue of this is also to say that in 2014, when I was living in the city, I kind of had gotten fed up with these very problems and questions, like not knowing who to invite, where to look for. I mean, I had all my friends coming into the studio, but I felt like, how do I get galleries in here? How do I get curators in here? It was not easy at all. So I moved away from the art world. I kind of got disenchanted in a sense and tried to find um, communities that interested me outside of the art world, which was something that, I carried and still carry through my work. So I learned food fermentation and got really interested in using food and fermentation in the work and having like a different context for inviting people to the shows and having different communities to engage with that weren't art community. But and all those things are great and wonderful and built a lot of the work and ideas that I'm still including in the studio practice that I'm doing. But what I realized is that like the people I knew from the art world that I was kind of trying to turn away from, are also like wonderful and compassionate people. It's just that I had gotten a distaste for. It's not like, oh, all of these people are like shutting me out or all of these people are only self-interested. It was really that the more I kind of look at it, like I also was not cultivating what I wanted out of social community in the art world. Or I say in the art world, I do mean just among my network. I can't talk about like the art world, like, people I don't know, the bigger
Yeah.
structure.
But I get,
That's out of my control. But the people that I do know, yeah.
can get like had a weird thing maybe 10 years ago. I got or less got weirded out by Instagram when I was working on a show. I felt feeling like judging myself poorly against everything everyone was posting. Like it's got sour and I was confused because that's not usually how I feel about it. So I just took it off my phone for a few months and did a reset and it was fine. But it was just like the normal things for some reason became toxic to me. And then I went away, came back. It's fine.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I think like, yeah, taking a break and also understanding what that media is doing and what it isn't doing. Like what it does, what it doesn't do for you. And like, yeah, if it's been really bothersome for me at times, but I've just decided like the ways I need to use it and the ways I don't want to interact with it.
You think that's just some plain old this like coming with maturity as a person? Yeah. I know some of these questions just come down to I got older.
I've been thinking about that as we were because as I was thinking about doing this with you, just because I know that or in thinking about the concept of what a free art school is or could be, and how much, yeah, maturity and just being a little more relaxed in my body and self, being more confident, those things have come with age. For me, they also came through gender transition and what that has meant for my level of self-confidence was really huge. So I just realized that I had some particular barriers that I needed to knock down a little bit before, like both in myself, well, yeah, for myself, that I was in control of. Those particular barriers that I was in control of, that I could take care of, that needed to come first for a little while.
Yeah. Oh,
So in that conversation of like thinking about maturity, that being part of it, also, well, there's a kind of utopian idea like within free art school that I wanted to maybe turn the tables and sort of ask you about, just because there's a lot of, and it doesn't even have to be utopian, but there is like some there's mutual aid behind it.
yeah.
So I think like what's available to us now as, being in our positions, either of age or experience and knowledge, both you and I, like, what do we offer? Like, I'm not currently teaching, although I have taught, but I do think a lot about ways that I don't have to rely on an institution to be connected with people who are learning and who
Mhm.
want to learn. And what does it look like to cultivate communities, educational communities, communities who are interested in critical thinking at different, no matter what ages are being brought together, and I hope it's multi-generational. That's actually one sad thing to me sometimes about school, although you need a place to be an age that you are learning, and not to, in terms of the majority of students, not the non-traditional students who are usually outliers in higher ed situations. But I think like anyway, there's a lot of questions there about like what it looks like um, to continue to teach or to offer knowledge to the world.
Well, two things. I realized that I had like the video about archival storage of large photographic prints. I realized I'd spent years learning something very specific. I wish I had just had a manual that someone else could have given me 15 years ago. So I thought I'd make that manual in case it was useful to anyone else. It's pretty niche, but just in case. Um, and then other bits of information like how, like getting artwork stolen from me, all those little explainer videos that I'm trying to make is, I wish I'd had access to that. So I'm putting it out there, and these are my politics, which is radical care of tenderness and care of each other. Like, oh man, like why not just share? But also these having these inner conversations with like you will make me feel like for a full 24 hours, like the world is not falling apart.
Yeah, think that's really wise. One thing is that like you are taking care of other people and creatures, but you're taking care of yourself in that way. I think that's really important. I just came across this podcast Ologies, the podcast.
No.
Okay, well, it's like it's really cool because she's really, really funny, so it's an entertaining thing to listen to. And each of them is an ology. So just imagine there's hundreds of, I don't know how many
Hmm.
ologies. So she was on with a journalist, and I can't remember what the ology is, but anyway, the point is there's a book called The Connection Cure that this author was on this podcast to discuss. And she's talking about what's called now social prescription. And a social prescription is when doctors are giving patients, looking at kind of a holistic sense of their lives and giving a patient a prescription to do something that would be maybe be called social. But it's not saying like, here, just go out and interact with people. It's like, what do you already like to do? Do you like to bike? Okay, but you haven't gotten a bike. These are the things you need, in order to get back on your bike. So they'll like set them up to do these things. And the philosophy behind it is like that we all need to live to thrive. We all need movement, art, um, service. I don't know. There's five things. And the ways that we need to be fulfilled in our communities can kind of be touched on these different points. So I think about like I don't know. I think a lot about living like a healthy life, but it's not in a sense of like trying to find what's wrong all the time. I just want to feel good in my body and in my practice. And that kind of described, some of the things I thought were, potentially like interesting about what it means to be in community now and how acknowledging it is like acknowledging it among us is actually a really great place to start. That, oh, we're doing this so that we have great social connections. Like, and that is a goal in and of itself, right? So that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, there's a lot of us, and I think we isolate. Not on average, artists tend to get into their own heads, and it's great to have this medium to because I'm in Brooklyn and you're in Kansas City, so we can having this nice conversation with the technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of us, and we have a lot. We can have a lot to support each other just by being in community. So, hey, thanks so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Can
Thanks
we
for the,
check back in and after some time has passed?
yeah,
Okay, cool.
definitely.
Okay, we're doing a bonus because I said it was really powerful that you talked about one conversation 20 years ago that's still bearing fruit.
So I wanted to talk about like power and how powerful that conversation was with that first studio visit I had with Mel Bachner, how it kind of turned around what I was doing. I abandoned painting. I mostly abandoned painting. I think I made a few paintings and then abandoned it. So it wasn't quite immediate. But anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about power and I guess recommend this book. There's this book written specifically for women. So, for me it was like, oh, should I be reading this? But anyway, it doesn't matter here or there. It's called Unbound, and it is a guide for women about power. So it's about like of course at the time I was gendered female, and so I think it is applicable in that scenario, especially where this person, a male figure, came into my studio, told me a very definitive thing about what I was doing, and I accepted it, right? I didn't have anything to say back. I didn't know what questions to ask. So I think like in that situation, if you can realize when someone has power over you and to understand that power, then to find a way to flip it. So there are like different methods, and I'm not gonna remember them all from the book because it is very specific in the book. But I think just on a general level to like she was a dominatrix, so she's coming out of it like really understanding power physically and emotionally, mentally. And in that situation, if I had just asked questions, if I had taken control in some way, if I had stood up for myself in some way and said, this is why I'm doing this. If I didn't know those things, there's also another technique of like turning the focus on them. Um, so, maybe asking him a specific question could have done it. But I think like the more you have that telescopic view of what could have been done, that particular moment has been lost. But what can you do for future moments where you realize someone has power over you and they shouldn't?
That's a tough one because we were paying a lot of money to be learning. So, I remember taking in a lot what teachers would say because that's what I had was paying the tuition for. And so turning the power tables around would have just like had me be more satisfied, but maybe I wouldn't have learned something. I don't know. Like that was the question. That's why I sort of took a lot of things back then.
I think you're still learning when you are speaking, right? If you speak something aloud to that scenario, like, I think learning things from, um, anti-racist tools and techniques. Like when you see violence, when you see something that like when you see police violence, when you see racial violence, for example, like being a white person and learning like how do I actually speak in this situation? How do I learn how to say something instead of like cowering, walking away? What are those moments? That's one like kind of bigger systemic example, but like what are the moments in your life that are also where you're frozen, right? And so how do you get unfrozen? So I think like it's not about not learning. In fact, you're still learning a lot, but it's also about gaining respect. I mean, I think there are a lot of ways in which like if I had been like I came into school with a lot of confidence, but that was quickly like knocked down. I think if I had been able to retain a certain amount of confidence and to be able to, I became afraid to speak and I became frozen more often in like paralyzed, you
Mm.
know, by just being receptive or just thinking, like you're saying, that I should be totally receptive. I think there's just a huge difference between being like arrogant and presenting to others that you're not listening or not learning, and the difference between that and like actually finding moments where you can learn both from the other person and yourself by speaking to it,
Mm.
you know.
I that experience I think was often a bit more toxic than it should have been, but in the rest of my life, I find this, they say the wisdom of the stairs in a very like patronizing way. But I find like in certain moments when I couldn't equip myself properly, then the feeling wells up in me and I will spend years and actually inspire a whole project of saying what I couldn't say in the moment. Whereas all the times I said something satisfying in the moment, that moment is just gone and it didn't inspire me for years to further articulate and make some beautiful thing. Well, hopefully beautiful, but like a project or a writing project, like essays and whatnot. Like somehow that little thing that sticks in me, like the moment wasn't good, and then I work on it for years in a less toxic or systemic form or scenario.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mix of all these things.
I think it's murky. I mean, it's murky for me in the scenario that I gave just because it was 20 years ago and I've definitely I've forgiven myself. Like I don't think like, oh, you really should have done something else, No. I mean, but I can see it because it stood out for so long, among maybe a few other interactions that stood out.
Also, were
Um,
you 22 years old?
yeah, I
You
was 23.
yeah.
Yeah.
All that
So
stuff made me so angry, and that anger really drove me through some tough times after school. That would put like a fire of rage in all of this stuff.
yeah, well, me too. But it wasn't productive anger. I think I think like I think I think sometimes it can come from love, but I think the lot of the anger I didn't know what to do with. So yeah, I think in terms of like recognizing power in all of these different scenarios, maybe just acknowledging like, okay, where are we at with with what the power dynamic is. There will always be a power dynamic. It's not about like not having one.
Okay.
But okay, bonus is done.
Okay, thank you. That was great.